a minute, that was wimpy. So was that. Good afternoon. It is August the 20th and a great day to be in Brentwood, Tennessee. It's my honor to be able to welcome you to the Rotary Club of Brentwood. And if we could start today with an invocation by Barrett, you can come on up here, and then the four-way test by Larry Kane, along with the pledge.
Hey, every week I select somebody for the prayer and somebody for the pledge and four-way test. So interesting to me because doing the prayer and you people standing up looking at me, it's kind of intimidating because, and let me tell you why. I teach an adult Sunday school class and they're all seated, so I feel like I have control. I deliver a sermon now and then and they're seated, so I feel like I have control, but you're facing me, so you're on my level. So that's a little bit intimidating, but it's okay. So I pray in public, I pray at church, I pray in Sunday school, but standing before you is somewhat intimidating. So I was thinking about it and I thought, okay, I'll put some words together. So I'm going to share my prayer with you. And just know that that my prayer is the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. And I want you to feel the presence of God today in your life. I want you to feel the presence of God in this room. And I want you to know that that God loves every one of you and that God made you for a purpose. And it didn't just happen. When God creates life, when God plants a seed, he creates life. And there's an importance in life. So we have a responsibility to represent Jesus Christ in our life in every way we can represent him. That's our job. So here's my prayer. God of mercy, we worship you. We honor you. You're an awesome God. You come to us in so many special ways, and we praise your name. We were made in your likeness and in your image, and we praise your name for that. Our hands were made to help others. Our feet were made to walk in the footsteps of Jesus. Our eyes were made to read your word and see the beauty of your creation. Our body is the temple of the soul. We were meant to praise you and give you thanks. We confess that we do not live with constant gratitude. We harbor resentment for what we lack. We blame you. We blame others. We doubt your compassion, even your power. We find it hard to give ourselves away to you or others in expressions of gratitude and praise. Forgive us, we pray, for attitudes and behaviors that diminish in us joyful thanksgiving. Heal and restore us. Help us to live the holy and joyful lives. We pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First. Second. Third. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth. Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Good morning, everyone. Is this thing on? Yeah, it's on. Okay. We do have one guest today. We've got some special inductions that are going to happen this afternoon, but we do have one guest. Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me, everybody. Thank you. We do have one special guest that Michael Hyman has brought to us today, so I'm going to let him introduce his guest.
Thank you. I am very pleased to have with me today a young architect who has been with our firm for several years and has been integral as a part of our growth and success. Recently, she has been named as a principal, a partner in the firm, and will be integral in that growth and success for many, many years to come. Please join me in welcoming Candace Schreiber.
Thank you for being here, Candace. And with that, I will turn it back to you, President Crossley.
All right, we have Happy Bucks now. J. Michael Barrett. Caught you.
Is this on?
It's on.
Okay. Who in here is happy? Bob, I'm coming to you. Normally about this time of year, I say this in honor of my good friend Sid Smith. It's almost football time in Tennessee. So Lori, Alan, they gonna play on the Grove, in the Grove this year. This is not Friday the 13th, so some people ought to be happy. They should be.
I'm happy because it's football time for high school in Tennessee right now. The Ravenwood Raptors taking on MBA for a big showdown, and that's why I'm happy. Oh, and my son got voted the student section leader, so he's all fired up. He had to go out and buy his PA system, and
There you
he's
go.
already working on his cheers. Anybody got any advice for him? Let me know.
It's in the blood. It's in the blood. All right, Mr. Bob.
Wednesday, we celebrated 49 years, and when I reached in my wallet to get a dollar bill, I found I only had 20 left. It appears my wife of 49 years has taken everything else but $20.
She still got you, Bob.
That's a hard act to follow. Well, three things real quick, and I'm gonna go through them fast. I turn 44 tomorrow. Praise God, another year. I'm just hit the halfway mark of my MBA. Very happy about that. And I had a chance recently to visit with our fine friends at the Paris, Tennessee Rotary Club and talk to them about another passion of mine, which is Toastmasters. And while I was out there, a fellow looked at me and he said, "You're from that Brentwood Rotary Club, ain't you?" "Yes, sir, I am." "I bet out there in Brentwood, you in some high cotton, ain't you?" So I just thought I'd share that. If y'all don't know what that means, look it up. There we go. There's the laugh. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Who else? As I said, this is not Friday the 13th, but last Friday being the 13th, our friend Jim Villers celebrated another 49th birthday, but he's not here. Mr. Governor.
I am peachy, and I'm thankful that I got my third shot. So crank it up.
Ooh,
That
wow.
means you're a booster, right? You are a booster. I normally don't call people out like this, but last Friday I met George Barrett. He should be happy. He found out he's not related to me. He should be happy. But speaking of calling people out, I had a conversation. I had a client of mine in one day this week. Our conversation, he is a BGA graduate. I graduated from Franklin, so you know how that went back in those days. We got to talking. I'm going to quote what he said, okay? Does anybody in this room not know who Larry Kane is? Anybody in this room? Madam President, is Larry Kane on the program today?
He has
Before I
every-
ask him to stand
He
up?
has every right to be, but,
Okay.
oh yeah, he is.
This gentleman was talking about Larry Kane, and I quote, "He was a hell of an athlete." Now, if you think Larry Kane knows how to play golf, he went to Auburn on a baseball scholarship. This is what my client said. When Larry Kane pitched a game in baseball, we never lost a game. When Larry Kane did not pitch, we never won a game. That's what he said. Take it for what it's worth. Any more happy bucks? Any more? All right, Mr. President.
All right, very good. Speaking of Larry Kane, Larry, you want to come up here for a second? For all of you who don't know, this is Larry Kane.
I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't know anything about that. That's terrible. Real quick golf update, and it'll be real quick. Today's August the 20th. And we have 38 more days. There we go. Brentwood Golf Classic. That's our website. If you haven't been on it, go look at it. Today's the 20th. We have 38 days till our tournament. 38 days. We are short $21,000 making our goal. short 21,000, but there's $27,900 in sponsorships that we sold last year still outstanding. 27 out, we need 21. We own those 27.9, as I say, every week. So please make those calls and get them in, hopefully this week or next. We've had a pretty good week this week, but we're still short. We can make it. Remember our little cartoon? Why do we do it? To raise money for BRCCF. Who can get another sponsorship? I can. Y'all can. Where's it? What do we do with it? 100% of the funds go to BRCCF. Financial success, the first 4 events, we raised $240,000. The future is bright. Betsy has already said we're going to have the best golf tournament ever. And to end on a happy note, we got a major sponsor this week, totally new to our club, to our tournament. Been working on it for 3 months. Perry's Steakhouse, everybody should be familiar with that, is going to be our players gift sponsor. They're giving us $50 gift cards for every player. That's $6,000 that we paid for last year. So that's a big deal, and it helps the tournament out tremendously. So end on a good note, get out there and sell those. Don't sell those sponsorships. Go call on those sponsors that you had last year and let's get them in. Thank you.
All right. We're going to go ahead and introduce 3, y'all count them, 1, 2, 3 new members to our club today. So if the members that are going to be inducted today will come forward, that'd be George Barrett, Lee Williams, and Jeff Brown, along with your Rotarians to introduce you, please. And then y'all can just introduce from the podium.
Oh. Okay, ladies first. All right. My dear friend Lee Williams Goodine is joining us today, and I just want to tell you a little bit about her. She's pretty amazing. She's a native of Williamson County and lives in Nolensville. She had her education from public relations from Lipscomb University and earned a master's in public administration with an emphasis in nonprofit management and leadership. And she's a certified fundraising executive. She's worked for Williamson Medical Center since 2013 and moved into the role of the foundation. And one of the kind of neat things about that was one of her first roles was working with the Brentwood Rotary and Robert Fiddler with Run for Rotary. And she is the director of development. And I love this. She likes to think of herself as the gratitude evangelist, and which is perfect because Lee is amazing. She plays the piano for her church. She teaches piano lessons in the evening in addition to everything else she does. And she's also an active member of 100+ Women Who Care in Williamson. In her spare time, she is a writer. She watches HGTV and discovers home projects to work on with her husband, Clay. And she's also a proud mother of 3 daughters. And some unknown trivia. I love stuff like this. She was Mrs. Williamson County International in 2000. And she's always wanted to be a talk show host, like Talk of the Town. That's my goal too. Soul sister on that one. Okay, but this is a part that I want to say that's most important. This is why she's perfect for Rotary. Lee's motto for life: I endeavor to make a difference every day for the people around me, whether it's work or personal. So congratulations, Lee.
We going one after another? All right. So I don't know quite as much about George, but I'm going to introduce George Barrett, and I'm going to make it all up. George, and I'm going to look at him while I'm saying this so he can say no if it's incorrect. George is from Long Island originally, but then moved down to Eatonton, Georgia, where he lived for about 20 something years. Was a member of the Kiwanis Club in Eatonton, Georgia for 22 years, and then moved here about 3 years ago and joined Kiwanis in Franklin there. He lives in Nolensville, but has finally, after 2.5 decades, realized that he belongs as a Rotarian. He's upgrading considerably. and has chosen the best Rotary Club in all the world. So please welcome George Barrett, who is, oh yeah, he's a retired, this is kind of fun. He's a retired secondary level educator, and he taught criminal justice. So he knows, he's focused already on the usual suspects in the room. So welcome, George Barrett.
I was asked to promise not to talk more than a short elevator ride. That was, somebody asked me about that. What the gentleman said is all true to this point. I got into my role as an educator in a very interesting way. Last week, I mentioned about the fact that my wife and I had just recently celebrated our 58th anniversary in marriage. And when we go back to the beginning, it was a bit of a rough start. My wife and I eloped, and her parents hardly knew me. But from day one, her father and I were the best of friends. The night that we went to his and my mother-in-law's house, he stuck his hand out to me and he says, "Welcome to the family. Let's make this work." And he never, ever let me down from that point forward. He was a high school administrator, he was a principal of a high school. George Barrett didn't know what he was going to be doing for a career at that particular time. I had just finished 4 years in the Marines and was working at Grumman Aircraft. And my wife's parents, both college educated from the 1930s, tell me how lucky I was, introduced me to a program though at NYU's Testing and Advisement Center, where I spent 3 Saturdays being tested, everything you could imagine, written IQ, verbal IQ, whatever. And at the end of that 3 weeks, I met with a counselor, and that counselor said 3 things. And it's going to be funny from what he just told you about this career that I had. Number 1 was social work. Number 2 was law enforcement. And number 3 was education. And luckily for me, 2 out of the 3 came out because I spent many of the years, the 32 years of education that I participated in, about 25 of those years, though, were spent teaching an elective class for high school students in criminal justice. And honestly, if I had to do over again, I probably wouldn't have stayed in education, but I did. And I am so thankful for it. And as was mentioned, the 20 years that I've spent since I retired from public education, I have been doing community service. And that's why this is the right place for me. Thank you very much.
I want to share with you Jeff Brown. Just to let you know how Rotary connects, I met a young lady in Hamburg, Germany at the RI convention named Amelia. And Amelia and Jeff, guess, and his wife Donna were in the same Rotary Club. And so when Jeff and his wife Donna moved to Franklin, Amelia made the introduction that, hey, I want you to get to know Jeff. He has an interest in working in human trafficking. And so I made the introduction. I did everything I could to keep him from going to this club because I said, hey, there's 3 Franklin clubs. You got to go visit. He visited our club, loved our club. And so that's where he ended up. But I didn't push him this way. So Jeff 100% chose our club over the Franklin club. So just want to put that out there. But it's just how Rotary connects. It's kind of neat to know that I can go to Germany, meet someone from Virginia, and they connect me to Jeff. And so when Jeff comes, he's been a past Rotarian for about 8 years, 9, 10 years, 8 to 10 years. And so he understands Rotary International very well. But Jeff comes here retired, and he and his wife have a financial business. And so he is he will be a great asset and already has been a great asset to me as far as helping me. He does anything that I need, and he's always willing to help. And you'll see him get involved with this Rotary Club because greatest asset thing I can say about Jeff is he is a doer. And it's always great to have those. That's what I think Rotarians are. So I welcome Jeff to our club.
You'll get to know me in time.
Why is it I feel like when Steve was describing our club, he was trying to apologize ahead of time? Yeah. Okay. Now, drum roll, ladies and gentlemen, we had a vote. And the winner is, as you can see, a quarter of it anyway, badge number 2. So we will be changing the badges, and I thank you. I've never gotten such a great response from the club. I mean, we had like 80 votes. It was awesome. Close runner-up was 1, and a sort of close runner-up, especially among Auburn fans, was number 3 because they like the orange and the blue. But so Donna's going to be working on those. It's going to take a while because we have to give them all the information and et cetera, et cetera. But you will have magnetic badges from now on, and number 2 would be the badge. So let's see. Is Beth Dormady here? Okay, no. Beth is going to do a Rotary moment to inform you guys about what she does as a director, including Pancake Day. So that's going to take a little while. Another announcement is on October the 1st in Chattanooga. That's a Friday. You would have to miss our meeting, but you could still get a makeup by going there. There's going to be a presentation from 8:30 until just after lunch, with lunch included, $25, and you can meet the president-elect of Rotary International. You can meet a past president of Rotary International, John Germ, and you can also meet the Zone 30 head there, and they will be envisioning basically the Zone 30 dream for what we're going to be doing in the next year or two. So if you really want to have some input into Rotary International, as I call it, Big Rotary, this is a great thing to do. So if you get a chance, I have the information for that. So does Dick Bowers. Our first responders picnic, we will not be meeting here on the 10th. We will be meeting at Granny White Pavilion on the 9th, which is the Thursday before at 5 p.m., just like we've been doing, but it's been a couple of years. So just a reminder that on September 9th, we'll have our first responders over at Granny White Pavilion, 5 o'clock. And then the next day we won't meet. As Larry said, get your golf sponsors. And one more thing, a lot of our committees are getting together and meeting, and I'm excited about that. But don't forget, you get credit for doing that. If you're meeting in a committee, make sure that your committee chair gets the information to Donna that you guys came and you have a makeup. Also, keep up with your service hours. If you go out and do a project, or you're working on a project, even if you're working at home, say on something that we're doing as a project like Pancake Day, or if you're working on something for the playground, keep up with those hours and send those in to Drew, because it's really important that we keep up with those over the years. You'll be amazed at how many hours you spend doing Rotary stuff, even if you're retired. So, all right. The email is Donna6760, which is our district, Donna6760@gmail.com if you want to mail her. All right. Now, Jonathan Merck, can you introduce our speaker for the day?
Gladly. At the age of 23, our guest speaker, Michael Brody-Waite, was a full-blown drug addict. Every day he drank a 5th of vodka, had a 12-pack of beer, and smoked 2 packs of cigarettes, and smoked more weed than any human should. He did whatever other drugs he could get his hands on. He'd been kicked out of college, fired from his job, and evicted from his apartment. He had no money, no home, was throwing up blood, and believed he would be dead before his 30th birthday. Then on September 1st, 2002, after running out of options and fearing death, he checked into rehab, entered recovery, and has been transforming himself ever since. On September 1st, Michael's TEDx talk, Nashville YouTube video, Great Leaders Do What Drug Addicts Do, is the #1 talk in the history of TEDx Nashville. It has been seen by over 1 million people in over 25 countries and provides insight into a 17-year journey from addiction to near homelessness to successful entrepreneurship. This talk sparked the mask-free movement, which he will be talking about, and brought awareness to Michael's mask-free program, built on 3 principles inspired by his recovery. In 2010, Michael left a Fortune 50 company at the height of the recession and co-founded and led InQuicker, a healthcare SaaS company that allowed patients to self-schedule appointments online. Under his leadership, the organization grew to 20,000% revenue growth in less than 6 years. This exceptional growth landed InQuicker a spot on the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing private companies. Additionally, the organization was named one of the best places to work 4 times and recognized as the healthcare company of the year. In 2015, InQuicker was sold to a publicly traded company. And after selling his company, Michael served 3 years as a CEO of the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, a 501c3 that helps over 2,000 entrepreneurs every year here in the area. Michael's an acclaimed speaker, an Inc. 500 entrepreneur, award-winning 3-time CEO, a leadership coach, and an author. His accomplishments include being named Most Admired CEO, named to the top 40 under 40, and being recognized by the Nashville Chamber of Commerce as Healthcare Entrepreneur of the Year. And now Michael's on a mission to teach people about mask-free living, which ironically is not the kind of mask that we're looking at around the room. Mike has written a book called Great Leaders Live Like Drug Addicts, and he'll be talking about it. And when I asked him to bring some books to sell, he brought books, but he's going to give them away for a donation to Rotary. We have less than 20 books here. So for the first 20 of you who will make a donation to the club today, put it in the Happy Bucks basket, you will get a book. So it's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you my friend, Michael Brody-Waite.
Remind me to never let Jonathan intro me for anything ever again. I hated hearing all those different things about me. That's not really what I'm about, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, introduce myself the way I do everywhere. For a lot of people, they would think this is their greatest weakness. For me, it's my greatest strength. And that is I'm Mike and I'm a drug addict. And so Jonathan mentioned this, but this was me at the age of 23. Homeless, carless, purposeless. You know, the only money I had was what I could steal from my friends. And this is kind of like a heavy way to introduce this. I realize this, like you guys are eating lunch, you're happy, you were literally passing around a basket and paying $1 to say how happy you are. So I know I might be depressing you. So you guys can laugh at this because it's funny. When I went to get my annual physical at the age of 23, my doctor said the only thing higher than me were my liver enzymes. That's not good. That's not good, guys. I've been working out since, so it's okay. But the point is that I did not want to live. I didn't know how to lead other people, let alone myself. And I was hopelessly addicted to alcohol and drugs. And now I go around the world and I speak to organizations like Google and Dell and HCA and startups and nonprofits and YPO, EO, and Vistage. And I tell them that great leaders live like drug addicts. And they look at me like, what the heck are you talking about, Brody-Waite? And so, as Jonathan mentioned, I gave this TED Talk, but I know a thing or two about leadership. My clean date, September 1st, 2002. First 8 years clean. I worked my way up from a temporary rep at a kiosk in a mall, Opry Mills Mall, for a company called Dell. Back when I had long hair, 2 hoop earrings, and flip-flops as a dude from California. And in 8 years, I was promoted to having a $250 million P&L and 19 direct reports in my 20s as a recovering addict with no college degree. Started my company, sold it, took over the National Entrepreneur Center, did the TED Talk, and now has over 2.7 million views. Continues to add about 1,000 and 3,000 new views a day. And the reason I did the TED Talk is people would tell me that my leadership style was different. And I would just tell them that I do what drug addicts do to recover. That's the school of leadership that I attended. And so, what do I mean when I say great leaders are like drug addicts? Because I will tell you, it's pretty polarizing, in case you hadn't gathered that. So I upset my friends that are leaders and my friends that are recovering addicts alike. And I take great pleasure in doing so. It's a double entendre. The leadership in our world was modeled off of command and control leadership, coming from the military, central command, distributing instructions for the troops. And what happened is, if you're a general, you can't be questioned, you can't admit weakness, you can't have anybody doubting your orders. As a result, you have to wear a philosophical mask and you have to hide your own doubts and your own weaknesses. And that made sense. And so in an industrial and manufacturing economy with a similar distribution of control, that's how we got corporate boardrooms where a CEO can't admit that they don't know what's going on or ask for help. That style of leadership, command and control leadership, made sense, but we are no longer in an industrial and manufacturing economy. We're in a services and information economy now. And when I work with leaders around the world, they're begging their people to lead themselves, but they haven't been trained on how. And so there's this term called authentic leadership. Very buzzy, people are tired of it. And what I will tell you is, everybody talks about authentic leadership. They want authentic leaders, brands, companies, managers, employees, you name it, but nobody knows how to actually do it. Well, there is one group of people in this world that knows how to do it, that has been systematically trained to do it, and that is recovering addicts. There are millions of recovering addicts around the world today that are using a system that was created 80 years ago to lead themselves. And when PhDs do studies on their leadership qualities, the number one word that comes up is authentic. Now, if you're an active addict, that's not the number one word that comes up. Okay, I know. I was a liar. It's okay, you guys can laugh at that. But addicts are systematically trained in a step-by-step system on how to be an authentic leader. And so what I've learned is I created an assessment. 3,000 leaders have taken this assessment. I like to say it's like 4 divisions in Google, 3 divisions in Dell, tons of startups, you name it, nonprofits. And I like to say it's leaders from the boardroom to the mailroom to the classroom to the living room. And they say that hiding themselves at work costs them 500 hours a year. And we live in a culture where the only thing we don't have enough of is time. So my big question that I always ask audiences is, what if the worst thing about you could be the best thing about you? And I want to illustrate this by telling you what active addiction for an addict can look like. This is a picture of me with my dad when I was in active addiction. Now, I know what you're thinking. It must be because he was on drugs that he's wearing such a hideous shirt. But then you might notice that my dad is also wearing a hideous shirt and say, maybe it's just he inherited terrible fashion sense. Well, the truth is that addiction and terrible fashion sense run in my family. I got both. And so when I was in active addiction, my dad would take me to breakfast every 4 to 6 weeks. It's just because he wanted to know that his son was still alive. And on those days, I would do what an addict does every single day to stay high. The first thing I would do is I would say yes to something that I could say no to, and I would get high before I would go see my dad. The second thing is when we'd be at breakfast, I wouldn't tell him that I was homeless and that I was throwing up blood. I would hide my weaknesses and therefore hinder his ability to help me be my best. And then when we would start talking about very uncomfortable things that are difficult, like rehab or an intervention, I would avoid that difficult conversation. And these are the 3 behaviors that addicts do on a regular basis every single day to stay high. We say yes to something that we could say no to, we hide our weaknesses, and we avoid difficult conversations. So this is the definition of addiction that I've collected over the years. Doing the same thing repeatedly despite negative consequences. So let's go ahead and see what you guys have in common with an addict, shall we? Everybody, please stand up. If you can. All right. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And when your answer to one of my questions is yes, go ahead and take a seat. In the last 30 days, have you said yes to something that you could say no to? If the answer is yes, go ahead and take a seat. For me, it was drugs, could be meetings that you should say no to. Okay, you guys are ruining my whole deal here. I got 2 more questions. So, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So the other 2 questions are, have you hit a weakness, which leaders do? And have you avoided a difficult conversation? And you know what? By the time I ask those 3 questions, if I'm talking to a group of 20, 200, or 2,000, everybody is seated. That is such an incredible opportunity to learn how to lead ourselves. Such an incredible opportunity. So I want you guys to close your eyes and imagine. And if you're retired, I want you to imagine what it was like when you were leading. I want you to pick a future. I'm going to list a future. I go around, I did my voice a little messed up. I've done 10 speaking engagements in 10 days. So I'm a little hoarse because I'm not screaming at you yet, but I probably will. And I'm going to ask you what I ask leaders to do. I want you to pick one of the futures I'm going to name that you don't have or you wish you had when you were working. First one, canceling every unimportant meeting on your calendar and having huge blocks of time to work on your business. Number 2, never being pulled back into a business with hot potatoes, conflicts you need to referee, or hey, you got a minute. Number 3, everyone on the team fearlessly giving direct constructive criticism to each other. Number 4, everyone on the team ruthlessly saying no to everything that doesn't matter. Number 5, finally saying no to the product, strategy, or distraction that is holding you back. And number 6, the relief of finally addressing the performance of the one person on your team that you have been letting slide. Obviously, I talk to leaders a lot. Go ahead and open your eyes. Who had a future number 1 that they want? Raise your hand. All right, got a couple. I feel like an auctioneer. Who's got number 1, number 1, number 1? Okay. Who's got number 2? Who wants future number 2? All right, future number 3. All right, more hands. Future number 4. All right, future number 5. Future number 6. And who wants all of these for every leader in the world? That's right. So here's the thing. You guys heard I was a drug addict and you thought this was about my intervention, but welcome, dudes and dudettes. This is yours. Because we have a saying in recovery, when an addict walks into the rooms of recovery with a head full of drugs and a desire to use, we will equip them with something that will screw up their using because they'll know there was a better way. Well, my job today is to screw up your leadership. These are the 3 behaviors that are preventing leaders from achieving that future that we just said we all want. 3 little behaviors that I mastered as an addict: saying yes when you could say no, hiding a weakness, and avoiding difficult conversations. And so when I gave my assessment to 3,000 leaders, what percentage do you think said they do one of these on a regular basis? Actually, I would love for it to be 100%. It would make me look really good. But it was 90%. I think the other 10% were lying. Not sure. And so here's the thing. Business makes the world go round in many ways, right? So many decisions get made by business leaders. Business is all about focusing on what you can't control and letting it go, right? We can't control a market, an economy, customers, supply chains, employees, all that kind of stuff. We can't control other people. So what do businesses do? They build systems to double down on what they can control. They don't just hire a new employee. They create a system for hiring and onboarding and training. They don't just sell. They create a system for selling and marketing. They don't just deliver. They create a system for delivering. They have systems to eke out as much efficiency in how they operate. And yet we have no systems for how we equip the people and the leaders of this world to say no, share their weaknesses, and have difficult conversations. And that is a massive opportunity. So I want you to consider this. This is what really helped me. Maybe we're addicts too, because I'm an addict, but I'm also a leader. And you know what? Those 3 behaviors, as an addict, I had to get really good at saying no. I had to get really good at sharing my weaknesses, and I had to get really good at having difficult conversations. And so maybe the lens of addiction can explain why people walk around and say, I know I should say no more to stuff. I know that person's struggling and they should share their weakness. And I know that we are avoiding a difficult conversation. Maybe the tools that addicts use to recover can give us what we need to be able to do that. So just real quick in business, since I talked to a lot of leaders, we're going to talk about this real quick. Saying yes, 31 hours a month is what employees say they're spending in unnecessary meetings. That's a lot of time, guys. That's a lot of time. This is a company actually here in Franklin, Core 10, an EO company. They were an outsourced software development firm. They used the process. Oh, my formatting's off a little bit. It's authentic though. You like it. They used the process that addicts use to recover because, see, they were walking around saying, we know we have too many meetings. We could be doing more. They would say that all the time. Nothing would happen. The same way I would say, I know I need to quit drugs. I know I need to quit drugs, but I didn't, right? We gave them the process that is similar to what addicts used to recover. And at the end of it, they sat down together, identified 30 hours of weekly recurring meetings with an average of 4 participants that they could cancel. And they got 6,000 hours back out of their work year as a company, just by using the process that addicts used to recover. Hiding a weakness. This is Emily. She is a prodigy consultant for a healthcare consulting firm. Now, in case you hadn't noticed, healthcare is largely an older man's game, whether we like it or not. And she had to work with physicians that are running health systems that are really experienced. And here she is, this 30-year-old prodigy female, trying to tell them what to do as a consultant. Well, one of her clients comes to her and they give her a problem that she doesn't understand. And what's her response? She goes, oh man, if I tell my boss I don't understand how to solve this problem, I'm going to be found out for the imposter that I am. How many people are scared to reveal that they are struggling because they're worried that people will lose faith in them and in their capacity? Well, we gave her the same process that addicts used to recover. She went to her boss and said, you know what? I don't know how to solve this problem. And the boss said, now I trust you more because I don't know how to solve that problem. She ended up getting promoted. Last one, avoiding difficult conversations. When my TED Talk went viral, I was very fortunate. Oh, I forgot that I say this first. So now I'm going to say this slide first. 70% of employees are avoiding a difficult conversation. And that's just internally with their boss, coworker, or direct report. That's not customers, investors, board members, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. So when my TED Talk went viral, I was really fortunate. There's a woman named Lisa Gavelber, who's an executive at Google. She runs all of global marketing. And she invited me out to Mountain View to do my process where I teach them what addicts used to recover. And she wanted me to do it with her team, because this is what I learned about Googlers. That's what they call them, Googlers. Googlers are really smart, and they are really nice. And that is a really big problem. That's a big problem. You guys should be laughing at that. That was a joke. Because here's what happens. She pulls her 12 leaders that lead a team of 2,000 employees into a room every quarter to plan their quarter. And that team directs 4 million hours a year of productivity. And the intelligence means they list all the things they could do, but the niceness means they don't challenge each other on it. And so they walk out with a suboptimized plan. Everybody was too nice. They didn't have the difficult conversation. And the entire division is suboptimized for the entire quarter. And they go, what did we do? And meanwhile, she knows if they picked the one priority that mattered the most, they would be the most successful and have a good quality of life, but they don't do it. So use the lens of addiction in the process of recovery. We said, hey, maybe you're addicted to avoiding difficult conversations. And they had 12 and changed their strategy. It's amazing how simple these principles work. So at this point, people in the room will be like, yeah, you know what? I agree. We need to say no. We need to share our weaknesses. We need to have difficult conversations. So maybe like me, you got inspired and you gave your team a book on saying no. You guys know who Brene Brown is? Anyone? Okay, some people call me a really poor man's Brene Brown. And so I gave my team I sent them her TED Talk as a top 5, gave her all her books. She's like an idol of mine. Everybody's inspired to be vulnerable. And you know what happens after like a month or two? People start saying yes again. People start hiding again. People go through the Crucial Conversations workshop. They start avoiding the difficult conversations again. Because here's the lie that we've been taught as leaders, that knowledge is power. When it comes to these behaviors, knowledge is in power, because you know what? Knowledge doesn't stop addiction. I knew drugs were bad and I wanted to stop. I got education too. You guys remember this program? The DARE program? For some reason, we thought it'd be a great idea to take a briefcase full of drugs from a police officer, go into a 7th grade class, slam them on the table, point them out to kids and say, guys, people love doing this stuff so much they don't go to work, but don't touch it. In 7th grade, I was like, dude, sign me up. I'm all about this. Dare say that police officer's the reason I became an, I'm kidding. It's not his fault. Knowledge doesn't stop an addict. Desire doesn't stop an addict. I wanted to stop using. I really did. You know, you can tell an addict to stop using, but it won't work. Who here is a vulnerable question, but has an addict or an alcoholic in their life, whether personal, professional, an acquaintance, someone they went to school with, someone they work with? Most of us do. And if you've been personally impacted by addiction, you know that you can tell an addict to stop using until you're blue in the face, and you can give them all the knowledge you want, and they can have all the desire. I buried some of my friends. I had the knowledge and I had the desire. But recovery does not happen when you tell an addict to stop. It only happens when you tell them what to start instead. I'm going to say that again. Recovery doesn't happen when you tell someone to stop. It happens when you tell them what to start instead. And when it comes to leadership, we keep telling people to stop saying yes, stop hiding their weakness, and stop avoiding difficult conversations. And what we need to do is tell them what to start instead. That's what they did when I woke up at the Betty Ford Center in Rancho Mirage, California, September 1st, 2002, rehab facility. They didn't tell me stop using drugs, bless you. They said, here's a 12-step system that you can use that millions of addicts use in order to recover. Anyone can use it. Here's how you use it. And so I want to share with you how I applied this in my personal life. So, actually, let me take a quick pulse. Who here has seen my TED Talk? Raise your hand. Okay, joke. A lot of fans in here, Jonathan. A lot of fans. Love it. All right. So it actually gives me the freedom to tell a story. I hate a very difficult conversation with the crew. So what they taught me in recovery helped me recover, but I want to show you how it helped me in my professional life too. So I got out of rehab. I moved into a halfway house. And they told me I had 5 business days to get a job or they were going to kick me out. So I go looking for jobs. I've started applying, but my work history is terrible. It's spotty. I've got no work history the last 3 years. I don't have a college degree. My professional reference is my counselor from rehab. That's not a good look. And the only place that I got a job interview was Sam Goody. Now, if you're older than me, you would call this a record store. If you're my age, you would call it a CD store. And if you run around with someone who's less than 30 years old, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Went in here for a job interview. I'm driving over. It's the only shot I've got at staying at this halfway house. And I call my sponsor. I'm like, what do I do? They're going to ask me about my work history. And he says, Mike, tell them the truth. I was like, you want me to tell them that I'm an addict that just got out of rehab, that's in a halfway house, and the only way I'm going to be able to stay in is if I get this job? I can't do that. This job has access to the cash register. It's an assistant manager position. If I tell them that, I won't get the job. I won't stay in the halfway house. I'll be out on the street. If I'm on the street, I'll relapse. And then I know I'll die. I thought you were my sponsor. You're supposed to help me out. And he said, Mike, no, you don't understand. If you don't learn how to say no, share your weakness and have difficult conversations, you won't stay clean and you will die. Now, 7 years later, I've been clean for 7 years. I've decided to risk it all. I've left my cushy job at a Fortune 50 company. And with no experience and no investors, I've co-founded a startup and I've maxed out my credit card, drained my bank account, withdrew from my 401k in the middle of a recession, having never been an entrepreneur, having no one backing us of any kind, with a mission to revolutionize how people access healthcare. At the time, the only way you could schedule an appointment for healthcare was over the phone. But you could schedule an appointment for your cat, for your hair, and for your car online. A Boeing 737 that was running late could text you, hey, I'm running late. But you couldn't schedule it for your body and for your health. So we built a software company. We had no idea what we were doing. We bootstrapped it. And then in 2010, we're running out of money. We've got 6 hospitals under contract. We're about to go completely under from a finances perspective. And I pitch one of our large health system customers on an enterprise-wide deal. One of those 6 hospitals was part of a large health system called Tenet. Months of negotiation happens. We're running out of cash. And one day they call us and they say, we're going to take you nationwide. You're going to go from hundreds of thousands in revenue to millions overnight. That night was the highest I ever got without using drugs. Let me tell you, very exciting. And the next day, everything came crashing down because they called us, or my IT person called me, and we had had a security incident in our software at the Tenet Hospital. And we had to tell them. And what this meant was the enterprise-wide contract would be gone. They were 70% of our revenue. We would lose all of our revenue. Those guys, my founding team, would be looking for a job. I would be bankrupt, and the mission and the dream would have been gone into air just like that. And then my partner says to me, dude, that's an overreaction. We impacted one patient. We didn't hurt them at one hospital, and they don't know. So let's not tell them, and let's keep building this company. As a recovering addict, I'm sitting there. And once again, I want to say yes to something that I could say no to. I want to hide the weakness of my company, and I want to avoid a difficult conversation with my customer. And in both of these situations I just shared with you, I had a step-by-step system that showed me how to lead myself so that I can say no, I can share my weaknesses, and I can have difficult conversations no matter what. And that's the gift of recovery. And so that's a system that I used in that Sam Goody interview, and I got that job. The system that I used getting promoted 8 times in 8 years at Dell, dude, that is a hippie with long hair and 2 hoop earrings. I didn't get promoted for my polished people. It was because I shared my weaknesses and I grew faster than my peers. My mentors became my employees. A step-by-step system I used to say no to my partner, call up that customer, tell them about the security incident, have that difficult conversation. They laughed because they only get a call like that when it's 20,000 patients, not one. And it turned out that made them trust us. And so we went nationwide and became an Inc. 500 company because they could trust us in a way they couldn't trust anyone else they worked with. And this is the picture of my team, 50 employees celebrating when we were acquired by a publicly traded company. And there's only one other recovering addict in that group. The other 48 are normies. That's what we call you guys. You are normies. My wife loves being called a normie. When we were acquired, we had #1 market share in our space, and we were the least resourced. Our primary competitor had $150 million in venture capital from Goldman Sachs, and I had a $23,000 credit limit from Citibank on my credit card. We killed our competitors because we had the only team that knew how to say no, share their weaknesses, and have difficult conversations. Not one Ivy League degree, not one patent, not one investor, nothing. So I figured, why should recovering addicts be the only people that learn how to use these principles that we teach and learn how to say no, share their weakness, and have difficult conversations, and create a system that makes it so simple that anyone can do it? And I will be driving with you to wherever you are going. You are good. This is a system that normies can use, that we say normies can use. This is Mary. Mary is the youngest person on her leadership team. She's the only person that's not white. She's Iranian, and she would not speak up in leadership team meetings. She read this book and she said now she's the most vocal leader on the team. They can't shut her up. This is George. He runs an office supply company. He used these principles that addicts used to recover, and they've reclaimed $1 million in value in their company just by doing what I learned how to do on a nightly meeting and a crappy cup of coffee. So every week with our members, I share a story where we live mask-free. It's philosophically masks. Trust me, Jonathan and I published a book in May of 2020 outlining something called the Mask-Free Program. It was a very uncomfortable year. But it's philosophical masks. And every week to our over 100 members of our program, I text out a story where I either fail to say yes, or fail to say no, fail to share a weakness, fail to have a difficult conversation, or succeed. It's less than a 5-minute video. If you want to be on that distro, text the word Monday to 33777. Monday to 33777. You can unsubscribe if you want, but it's something that I do to inspire people, to show them how it's possible to say no, share your weaknesses, and have difficult conversations. So I want to close out with this. I love this quote. E. Cummings, to be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best day and night to make you like everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting. I know it's uncomfortable to think of this as somewhat similar to an addiction. It was very uncomfortable for me to talk about addiction. But when we talk about addiction, we can access this thing called recovery. And if we use recovery, not just for recovering addicts, but if we use the principles behind recovery to enable the leaders of this world to say no, share their weaknesses, and have difficult conversations, we can make that quote, and go back to it, we can make our companies places that make this quote possible for everybody to win this battle. So, I was an addict. I am still an addict. But you know what? Today I have this thing called recovery. And it's turned me into a leader, a father, a husband, and apparently a big bird. And I know these principles saved my life, and this process saved my life. But what I would submit to you today is don't take away from this another addict telling their story of getting recovery. Know that the principles that addicts use to recover can absolutely transform leadership. Because what happened if we lived in a world where our companies and our leaders said no, shared their weaknesses, and had difficult conversations and equipped their teams with a system to do the same? That's all I've got. Thank you, guys. Oh yeah, I was worried about your time.
Questions?
I'll stay. You have to kick me out. I'll stay here as long as you want.
Does Jeff Bezos follow your style?
No. From what I can tell, no. 33777.
Mike, we want to thank you again, and this is something that we do now that things are back where we can actually go out to schools, is we give our first graders that we read to a book about the four-way test and Rotary. And so as a gift, we like to give you a pen to sign this, and then when we go to see them, we open the front page, and with your name there, we tell them why you meet the four-way test and what you were to us like that. So if you would sign that and leave it with us and keep the pen for yourself, we would appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Thanks again, Mike. Thanks to guests. Congratulations, our new members. I have a quote to leave you with now. If we get up there. Okay. It's one of my favorites from Thoreau. I think I could live out in the woods and have a wonderful mindset at the same time. But it's not what you look at that matters, y'all. It's what you see. And there you go. All right. Let's help put up tables, put the chairs against the walls. Anything else for the good of Rotary at this time? Okay. Jonathan, you want to tell them again what the deal is here? Remember,
I will stand back here by this box and I will take the basket from Happy Bucks. And for the first, however many we have that will make a donation to the club, you will get a book.
all right. All right. There's nothing else for the good of Rotary. We are adjourned. Much better, Dan.